At Mom's birthday, my brother splashed his drink on me. "Sorry, I ruined your $5 dress." Everyone laughed. That night, I sent cancel. By 8:30 a.m., they kept calling. I replied, "The $5 dress is ruined. It can't be fixed." I'm standing in the hallway of the police station, and Detective Kale is looking at me with that look they probably teach you to do at the academy. Sympathetic, but unyielding. "Miss Harrison, are you absolutely sure you want to file a formal complaint against your own brother?" he asks for the third time in the last 20 minutes. My phone on the table vibrates incessantly. 37 missed calls from Marcus, 12 from Mom, 8 from Dad. Messages from Aunt Maureen, from my cousin Jillian, even from my parents' neighbor, Mrs. Blanchard, who has nothing to do with this story at all. They all say pretty much the same thing. I'm cruel. I destroyed my family. I ruined my brother's future. And all because of what? Because of a stupid $5 dress. "Yes," I tell the detective. "I'm sure." He nods, makes a note in his folder, and I look at my phone and think about that dress, about how much it really cost, and about how no one, absolutely no one, asked me if I was okay. But let's start at the beginning. My name is Wendy Harrison. I'm 23 years old, and I'm a senior manager at Sunrise Tours travel agency. To be honest, the job title sounds much better than what I actually do, answering calls from customers who want to cancel their reservations the day before departure, resolving conflicts between tourists and hotels, and writing reports for management that never reads them. My salary is $200 a month. For some, it's laughable. For others, it's normal. For me, it's a means to an end. I live in a rented room on the outskirts of town, in an apartment with a girl named Roxy, who works as a bartender in a nightclub and comes home when I'm already awake. We hardly ever see each other, which suits me fine. The rent is $450 a month, plus $100 for utilities. The rest goes to food, transportation, small expenses, and savings. Every month I try to save at least $250. Sometimes it's $300 if I don't have to buy anything urgent. The goal is to save $20,000 for a down payment on a one-bedroom apartment. According to my calculations, I need another 3 years, maybe 2.5 if I'm lucky with the bonus. I keep a notebook where I write down all my expenses. Coffee at work is $3, which is too expensive, so it's better to bring a thermos from home. Lunch at a cafe is $8, but I can save money by cooking in the evening and bringing containers. A new dress is $120, but it's versatile and will work for any occasion. My coworkers sometimes invite me to dinner on Fridays. I decline. Not because I don't want to socialize, but because dinner at a restaurant is at least $30, which I can spend more wisely. They're used to it. Now they don't invite me anymore. I'm not complaining. I just know what I want. My own apartment. My own place. Where no one will tell me what to do or how to live. My brother Marcus lives a completely different life. He's 25 and works as an engineer at Precision Parts, a factory that makes car parts. His salary is about the same as mine, $1,100 or $1,200, depending on the shift. But the difference between us is like the difference between two planets. Marcus lives with his parents in their 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. He doesn't pay rent or utilities, and he eats from the shared refrigerator that his mother Annette diligently fills every week. He spends all the money he earns on himself. Last month, he bought new Jordan sneakers for $200. The month before that, he bought an electric scooter for $350. He always has the latest phone, the best headphones, and subscriptions to every streaming service available. He goes to bars every weekend, brings girls home, goes to concerts. When I was younger, I envied him. Now I just don't understand how he doesn't think about the future. But it's his choice, right? Our parents, Matthew and Annette Harrison, are simple people. Dad works as a private electrician, goes on calls, fixes wiring in houses, changes sockets, installs chandeliers. He is quiet, always tired, smells of tobacco and old tools. He comes home in the evening, washes up, eats dinner in silence, watches TV, and goes to bed. He's not one to talk much or get involved in other people's business. He just works. Mom works as a veterinary assistant at a small clinic with 2 doctors. She's emotional, loud, loves drama and attention. She tells stories about every cat that is brought in for examination, cries over movies, and argues with neighbors over parking. And she adores Marcus. She always has, for as long as I can remember. When we were 12 and 10, Marcus broke a vase in the living room while playing soccer in the house. Mom said, "It's okay, son. It happens to everyone." When I accidentally spilled juice on the carpet at 15, Mom yelled at me for 20 minutes and made me clean the stain myself. When Marcus was 17, he crashed Dad's car into a mailbox, and my parents argued, but they didn't yell at Marcus. "He's young, he's learning," Mom said. When I was 19 and forgot to buy the milk my mother asked me to get, she didn't talk to me for 2 days. I'm used to it. I'm responsible. I'm smart. I can handle it myself. I don't need to be reminded. I don't need to be checked on. I don't need to be praised. I just do what needs to be done. A year ago, Marcus asked me for a favor. He was sitting on his parents' couch, flipping through the channels, and said, "Listen, Wendy, I'm having problems with my cell phone provider. They blocked my plan because of some error in the system. Can you temporarily add me to your plan? I'll be back on mine in a couple of weeks, I promise." I asked how much it would cost. He said $20 a month, no big deal. I agreed. He's my brother, and $20 isn't a lot of money. I can afford it. A month later, the plan cost $30. Marcus said he had added mobile internet because he needed it for work. 2 months later, it was $50, then $70, then $120, then $140. I didn't say anything, because Marcus did sometimes buy food for the whole family when we got together. A bag of chips, a bottle of wine, ice cream, sometimes meat for the barbecue. I thought it was a fair exchange. I pay for the phone, he buys food. It works out about even. I didn't know what I was actually paying for, but I found out later. Much later. For now, I just lived my life. Work, home, a notebook with expenses, dreams of an apartment I wore, clothes from thrift stores and sales, cooked at home, rarely saw my friends. I was the invisible daughter, the one you don't have to worry about because she can take care of herself. And I did take care of myself. I saved up $8,700 in cash. I kept it in an envelope in a drawer of my dresser in my rented room. I never told anyone how much it was. Even Roxy didn't know. It was my money, my path to freedom, my way out of a life where you are invisible, where you are just a function, a daughter, a sister, an employee. And then it was my mother's birthday. She was turning 48. She wanted to celebrate at home, invite relatives and friends, have a real family celebration, as she said. I agreed to come, of course. I bought her a gift, a set of scented candles for $30. That's a lot for me, but my mother loves such things. She says they calm her down after work. I baked an apple pie at home so as not to spend money on a pastry shop. I chose the same black dress that I bought on sale 6 months ago for $120. It's not bad. Simple, suitable for all occasions. I didn't know that this birthday would change everything, that this dress would become the most expensive thing I've ever worn. I arrived at my parents' house at 5 in the evening. Mom opened the door wearing a new fuchsia blouse with a shiny brooch on her chest that I had never seen before. She was in a good mood, smiling broadly, hugging me quickly and immediately pulling me inside. Come in, Wendy. Did you bake something?" "Oh, apple pie, wonderful. Put it in the kitchen, there's already so much there." Aunt Maureen brought a salad. Mrs. Blanchard brought some kind of casserole. I don't know why, I didn't ask for it, but okay. "You look a little pale. Are you eating properly?" I said everything was fine and went into the kitchen. There really was a lot of food there. Plates, pots, bowls, foil, cellophane, the smell of garlic, cheese, meat. Dad was standing by the refrigerator with a bottle of beer in his hand and nodded silently to me. He was wearing a clean shirt, which was rare for him. He usually wore his work clothes. His hair was wet, as if he had just come out of the shower. "Hi, Dad," I said. "Hi, sweetie," he replied and took a sip of beer. Mom was bustling around, rearranging plates, taking glasses out of the cupboard, reminding herself of something aloud. I put the cake on the table and placed the gift bag by the sofa in the living room. There were no other gifts yet. Marcus was coming later. The guests began to arrive around 6. Aunt Maureen and her husband, Uncle Lenny, brought wine and flowers. My cousin Jillian came with a guy whose name I didn't remember. He was wearing a T-shirt with the logo of some rock band. Neighbors, Mrs. Blanchard and Mr. Carlton, an elderly couple who lived 2 houses down and always come to all the celebrations. Mom accepted greetings, hugged everyone, laughed loudly. Dad turned on the music, some old songs from the 80s that Mom loves. I stood to the side, smiled when I had to, answered questions about work. How are things at the agency? Fine, thanks. Have you found a boyfriend yet? No, I don't have time for that right now. You're too thin. You need to eat more. Yes, of course, I'm trying. Marcus arrived at 7. I heard his voice from the street. He was shouting something cheerful, laughing. He came in with a huge bouquet of roses, red ones, probably about 30, and a gift bag from an expensive store. He was wearing a new shirt, one I had never seen before, gray with thin blue stripes, probably costing around $80. "Mom!" he shouted, and Mom rushed to him as if he had returned from war. She hugged him, kissed him on the cheek, took the bouquet, and pressed it to her chest. "Marcus, my son, they're beautiful. God, they smell wonderful. You're so thoughtful." He smiled broadly and hugged her shoulders. Only the best for the best mom. Then he took a box out of the bag. Perfume. I recognized the brand. It was well known and expensive, about $150, if not more. Mom almost fainted with excitement. "Marcus, you're out of your mind. It costs so much." "Mom, expensive things suit you," he said and winked. The whole family gathered around, watching Mom unwrap the gift, smell the bottle, and show it to everyone. Aunt Maureen said it was a gorgeous scent, and Uncle Lenny nodded approvingly. Jillian said, "Wow, Marcus, you're a hottie." I stood to the side and thought about my gift, $30 candles that were still in the bag by the couch. Then Mom remembered. "Oh, where's Wendy's gift? Wendy, sweetie, you brought something, right?" I nodded, went and got the bag. I gave it to her. Mom opened it and took out the box of candles. She looked at it and smiled. "Oh, candles, how sweet, thank you, dear. That's so nice of you." And that was it. She put the box on the table, turned to Marcus, and asked him about his job and some new girl he was dating. Her name is Kayla. She works as an administrator at a fitness club. Mom listened, nodding and smiling. We sat down at the table around 8. There was too much food. Baked meat, potatoes, salads, bread, sauces, my pie somewhere on the side. Mom sat at the head of the table, Dad to her right, Marcus to her left. I sat further down between Aunt Maureen and Jillian. The toasts began. Uncle Lenny said something about how quickly time flies and how important it is to cherish family. Mrs. Blanchard said that Annette looked wonderful for her age. Marcus raised his glass and said, "To the best mom in the world who always supported me, believed in me, and loved me unconditionally. Mom, you are my superhero." Mom cried with happiness. Everyone applauded. I also raised my glass and drank some water. I don't drink wine. It's expensive, and I don't like the taste. Marcus was the center of attention that evening. He told stories about work, joked, laughed loudly. He drank several glasses of wine, then switched to beer. His cheeks turned red, his eyes sparkled. He was in a good mood, the Marcus that everyone loves, cheerful, carefree, charming. Sometime after 9, he started joking with me. First, something about how I'm always serious. My sister, always with that look on her face, as if she's calculating taxes in her head. Everyone laughed. I smiled so as not to seem boring. Then something about me being thrifty. Wendy can stretch $1 for a week, I'm not kidding. She's the queen of discount coupons. Aunt Maureen said, "Oh, that's good. You have to know how to save money." But she was laughing. Then something about my clothes. "Sis, you've had that dress for 5 years, haven't you?" I said, 6 months. He said, "Looks like 5. Everyone laughed again. I sat there and endured it. I'm used to Marcus always joking like that. He's not malicious. He just doesn't think. At least that's what Mom always says. And then it happened. Marcus reached for his glass, wanted to drink, but turned sharply to say something to Uncle Lenny, and the glass tipped over. Red wine spilled right on me, on my dress, on my knees, on my thighs, on my stomach. Cold, wet, sticky. I froze. I looked down at the dark red stain spreading across the black fabric. I felt the wine seeping through it, cooling my skin. A moment of silence. Then Marcus said, "Oh, sorry, sis. I think I ruined your $5 dress." And he laughed. Everyone laughed. Aunt Maureen covered her mouth with her hand and squealed, "Oh, Marcus, you're such a joker." Jillian giggled. Uncle Lenny shook his head and smiled. Mom smiled too, even though she said, "Now, Marcus, don't make fun of your sister. Wendy, sweetheart, don't worry, it'll come out." But she was laughing too. Everyone was laughing. I sat there staring at the stain. The dress cost $120, not $5. $120. I bought it on sale, stood in line, checked the size twice. It was the only dress I could wear to all the family events, the only one. Marcus didn't apologize. He was already back to talking to Uncle Lenny, laughing at some story, as if nothing had happened. I got up. I took a napkin from the table and dabbed at the stain. Mom said, "Wendy, go to the bathroom. There's stain remover under the sink." I went to the bathroom. I closed the door. I stood in front of the mirror. I looked at myself, at the dress, at the stain, which was already drying around the edges, darkening. I felt something strange. Not anger, not sadness. Something cold and heavy that settled somewhere in my chest. I wet the napkin and rubbed the stain. It faded a little, but did not disappear. I knew it wouldn't disappear. Red wine is one of the worst things for fabric. You have to use salt, cold water, and special products right away. But a napkin in the bathroom is useless. I stood there for about 10 minutes. I heard voices from the living room, laughter, music. No one came to check if I was okay. Then I went back to the table, sat down in my seat, finished my dinner, smiled when I had to, answered questions. Marcus didn't mention the dress again. He talked about some new project at work, about how he and his friends were going fishing. Mom listened, nodding enthusiastically. Dad was silent, eating slowly, glancing at his watch from time to time. Around 11, the guests began to leave. Aunt Maureen kissed Mom on the cheek, and Uncle Lenny shook Dad's hand. Jillian and her boyfriend were among the first to leave. Mrs. Blanchard and Mr. Carlton waved goodbye and promised to visit again. Marcus was also getting ready to leave. He took out his phone, wrote a message to someone, then said, "Mom, I'm going to Kylie's. I'll sleep over there. I have to work early tomorrow." Mom hugged him and kissed him on the cheek. "Go, son. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the gifts. You're the best." He smiled, waved to everyone, and left. I helped my mom clear the table. I collected the plates and put the leftovers in containers. My mom said something about what a wonderful evening it had been, how happy she was that everyone had come. My dad sat on the couch watching TV. I left for home around midnight. My mother hugged me as I was leaving and said, "Thank you for coming, sweetheart. The candles are beautiful. Thank you." I nodded and went to the car. Roxy wasn't home yet. She was working the night shift. I took off my dress and looked at it under the light. The stain was large, dirty red, and dried. I put the dress in the sink, poured cold water on it, and added stain remover. I don't know if it will help, but it's worth a try. Then I lay down in bed and stared at the ceiling. I heard cars passing by outside the window, someone shouting in the street, music playing somewhere. I thought about how Marcus said $5, how everyone laughed, how no one asked if I was okay, how Mom said, "Don't worry, it'll wash out," but didn't come over to me, how Dad didn't even look my way. I thought about the $120 that dress cost, about how to them it was nothing, a trifle, a joke. I thought about my savings, about the $8,700 in the envelope, about how many dinners I didn't buy, how many times I gave up coffee, movies, new clothes to save that money. I thought about Marcus, about how he spends money on everything, about how I pay for his phone, $140 a month, a year already. I picked up my phone. I went to my mobile operator's app. I looked at my tariff plan. I found the Connected Services section. Marcus was there. His number, his tariff, and something else. The Equipment Installment Plan section. I clicked on it. There was a list: MacBook Pro, gaming PC, new phone, a gaming console. Total cost, $10,000. Term, 10 years. Monthly payment, $83. And it was all deducted from my plan. I read it over and over again. I couldn't believe it. $10,000. 10 years. My plan. Marcus had put it all on credit, through my number, and I had been paying for it the whole time, not just for the service, for all his toys. I texted him, "Did you know the installment plan is being charged to my account?" No reply. 3 a.m. He's probably sleeping at Kayla's. I stared at the screen, at the cancel plan button. I thought about the dress, about the $5, about the laughter. I pressed it. I didn't sleep until 4 a.m. I lay in bed, holding my phone in my hands and rereading the information about the installment plan over and over, as if hoping that something would change, that I had misunderstood something. But no, everything was clear. MacBook Pro, 15 inches, $2,400, gaming computer with monitor, $3,100, new phone, last year's model, $1,200, a game console with an extra controller and several games, $1,300. Some other accessories, headphones, something small. The total amount was exactly $10,000. The installment period was 10 years. The monthly payment was $83, plus interest, which the operator added automatically, came to about $90. And all this was written off from my tariff plan as an additional service. I looked at the payment history. A year ago, Marcus asked to add it to my plan. That same month, the first installment payment, then another and another, every month without fail, $1,080 a year. I gave him $1,080 without even knowing it. And he bought groceries a couple of times a month, $30, maybe $40. And I thought it was fair. I sat in the dark, and one thought kept running through my head. He knew. Marcus knew the payments were coming out of my account. He couldn't not know. He set up the installment plan, signed the papers, entered the phone number, my number. He used me for a year, and he kept quiet. And today he spilled wine on me and called my dress $5, and everyone laughed. I opened the Manage Plan section. I found the Cancel Plan button. Next to it was a warning in red letters. Warning: if you cancel your plan, all connected services, including equipment installments, will be terminated. The subscriber is required to return the equipment within 15 days or pay the balance of the full cost. I read it 3 times. Then I clicked on the button. Are you sure you want to cancel your rate plan? Yes. The cancellation will take effect within 24 hours. Confirm? Yes. Your request has been accepted. A cancellation notice will be sent to the subscriber's number. Done. I put the phone on the nightstand. I closed my eyes. My heart was beating fast, my hands were shaking a little, but inside I felt something like relief. It was as if I had taken something heavy off my shoulders that I had been carrying for too long. I fell asleep around 5 a.m. I woke up at 8 to the sound of the phone. A call. Marcus. I looked at the screen. I didn't pick up the phone. The call ended. 10 seconds later, another one came in. Marcus again. I got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and put the kettle on for coffee. The phone rang. Then a call from my mom, then Marcus again, then my dad, then Marcus again. I made coffee, poured it into a cup, and sat down at the table. I looked at my phone. 23 missed calls. A message from Marcus on Viber. A screenshot. I opened it. The screenshot was a message from the mobile operator. Dear subscriber, your tariff plan has been canceled at the request of the owner. All connected services have been terminated. The installment plan for the equipment is subject to immediate return. You must return the equipment within 15 days or pay the remaining balance, $9,217. For more information, please contact your operator's office. Under the screenshot, Marcus wrote in capital letters, "Wendy, what have you done?" I took a sip of coffee. It was hot, a little bitter. I hadn't added sugar. The phone rang again. Marcus. I picked up the phone. "What have you done?" he yelled immediately without saying hello. "Good morning, Marcus," I said calmly. "What the hell kind of morning is it? Wendy, are you out of your mind? They want $9,000. Do you hear me?" $9,000. "I hear you," I said. "Refund the fare immediately. Right now, go to the app and refund it." "No." Silence. 5 seconds. "What do you mean, no?" His voice rose to a falsetto. "I'm not refunding the fare, Marcus. I'm sorry." "You're crazy. That's money, real money. How am I supposed to pay back $9,000? "I don't know," I said. "That's your problem." "My problem? You did this on purpose. Why? Because of a dress. It's just a dress, Wendy." "And this is just a rate plan," I said quietly. "I'm sorry, Marcus. I ruined your installment plan, just like you ruined my $5 dress, and there's no fixing it." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. I clutched the cup, feeling the warmth through the ceramic. The phone rang again. Marcus. I ignored the call. Message from Mom. "Wendy, call me urgently. What did you do to Marcus?" Message from Dad. "Daughter, please call. Marcus is panicking. I don't understand what happened." Message from Marcus. "You can't do this to my life, my tech." I didn't reply. I drank my coffee, washed the cup, got dressed. I had to go to work. At work, I couldn't concentrate. My phone vibrated every few minutes. I turned off the sound and turned it face down. My colleague Samantha asked if everything was okay. I said yes, just family stuff. I spent my lunch break in the park next to the office. I sat on a bench and looked at the trees. I turned on my phone. 48 missed calls. Dozens of messages. Marcus was texting nonstop. First he was yelling in all caps. Then he was begging, "Wendy, please, this isn't a joke. I'm serious. I can't pay back $9,000. I don't even come close to having that kind of money. Please turn the tariff back. I'll apologize for the dress. I'll buy you a new one, whatever you want." Mom wrote, "Wendy, sweetie, don't do this. Marcus is your brother. He made a mistake, but you can't ruin his life over one mistake. Call me." Dad wrote briefly, "Wendy, this is serious. Let's talk?" I replied with one message, the same for everyone. "Marcus has been paying for technology from my plan without my knowledge for a year. I found out yesterday. I don't want to pay for it anymore. He's an adult. Let him deal with his own problems." I sent it. I blocked Marcus on all messengers and on my phone. I didn't block my mom and dad, but I didn't read their messages. I went back to work. All day long, I answered customer calls, filled out spreadsheets, and pretended that everything was fine. When I got home in the evening, Roxy was sitting on the couch with a cup of tea. She's rarely home at this time. She usually sleeps until evening before her night shift. But today she was here. "Hi," she said. "Are you okay?" "Why do you ask?" I put my bag on a chair. "Because some guy came by today. He said he was your brother. He asked if you were home. I said no. He looked, well, angry." I froze. "When did he come by?" "An hour ago, maybe. I just woke up and heard the doorbell ring. I opened the door and there he was. He said he had forgotten something to give you and asked if he could come in. I replied that you weren't home and that I wouldn't let anyone in without your permission. He argued a little, but then left." "He didn't come in?" I asked sharply. "No, I didn't let him in. Why, is something wrong?" I thanked her and went to my room. My heart was pounding. I opened the drawer of the dresser where I kept the envelope with the money. The envelope was there. I took it out and opened it. I counted the bills. Once, twice, 3 times. $4,500 was missing. Exactly half. I sat on the floor next to the dresser, holding the envelope in my hands, unable to believe it. How? When? Then I remembered. Yesterday. My birthday. I left my bag in my parents' bedroom while I was helping my mom in the kitchen. Marcus could have come in. He knew I kept money in an envelope. I had mentioned it once in passing, not thinking he would remember. He stole from me. My own brother stole my savings. I sat there, I don't know for how long. Then I got up, took my phone, unlocked Marcus's number, and wrote, "Did you take my money?" There was no reply. I wrote again, "Marcus, answer me. Did you take $4,500 from my envelope?" Nothing. I called him. He rejected the call. I stood in the middle of the room and realized I had to do something. Not just write to him, not just ask him to return it. He won't return it. He's already shown who he is. I dialed the police number. The officer arrived in half an hour. He was a man in his 40s, in uniform with a notebook. His name was James Tanner. He sat down on a chair in the kitchen, and I sat across from him. "So, Miss Harrison, tell me what happened," he said. I told him about the money in the envelope, about discovering the shortage today, about my brother coming here while I was out, about visiting my parents yesterday, and possibly leaving my bag unattended. Officer Tanner took notes and nodded. "Are you sure the money was there until yesterday?" "Yes. I checked it the night before last when I added another $200 from my paycheck." "And you suspect your brother?" "Yes. He's the only one who knew where I kept the money." "And he came here today. Do you have security cameras in your apartment?" "No." "Are there any witnesses who might have seen him here?" "My roommate, Roxy Delaney. She opened the door for him but didn't let him in. But he could have come in yesterday when I was at my parents' house, or today, when Roxy opened the door and stepped away for a moment. I don't know." The officer thought for a moment. "Miss Harrison, the thing is, without direct evidence, it will be difficult to prove. Even if your brother confesses, he can say that you gave him the money voluntarily. Are you ready to file a formal complaint?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "You see, he's your brother. If we start an investigation, it could have serious consequences for him and your relationship with your family." "I understand," I said. "I want to file a complaint." He nodded. "Okay. I'll need to talk to your brother and your neighbor. Can you give me their contact information?" I gave him Marcus's number, my parents' address, and explained where to find Roxy. Officer Tanner said he would contact me in a few days when he had more information. After he left, I sat in the kitchen staring at the empty cup I hadn't filled. Roxy came out of her room and asked if everything was okay. I said yes, thank you for not letting my brother in. She nodded but looked concerned. "Listen, Wendy, if you need to talk, I'm here." "Thanks," I said. "I'll be fine." She went back to her room. I was left alone. I turned on my phone. New messages from my mom. "Wendy, what have you done? Marcus says you called the police on him. He's your brother. How could you?" From my dad. "Daughter, this is too much. We need to talk like adults." From Aunt Maureen. "Wendy, I don't know what happened between you, but you don't betray family." I didn't reply to anyone. I put my phone down and went to take a shower. I stood under the hot water until my skin turned red. Then I got dressed and went to bed. I couldn't sleep. I thought about Marcus, about how he took my money, exactly half. Not all of it, but half. As if that made it less bad. As if leaving me half meant it wasn't really stealing. I thought about how he had been using my phone plan for a year, how he had bought himself gadgets with my money, how he had spilled wine on me and called my dress cheap, how he had laughed. I thought about how my family said I had done something terrible, as if I had betrayed him, and not the other way around. And somewhere deep inside, I felt that this was only the beginning. The next day, I went to work as if nothing had happened. I answered calls, booked tickets, and resolved customer conflicts. My boss, Linda, asked if I was okay. I must have looked paler than usual. I said I just hadn't slept well. She nodded and moved on. I kept my phone on Do Not Disturb mode. I knew there were dozens of messages, but I didn't want to read them. Not now. In the evening, when I was about to go home, I got a message from my dad. "Wendy, come over tomorrow at 6 p.m. We need to talk, please. Short, emotionless. I knew that tone. When my dad says, we need to talk, it's serious. I didn't reply right away. I came home, changed my clothes, made myself a sandwich, which I never ate. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the wall. Roxy came home from work in the morning, said hello, and went to bed. We'd hardly spoken in the last few days. She sensed that something was wrong and didn't pry. I looked at my dad's message again. I thought, maybe I shouldn't go. Just ignore it? But I knew that wouldn't solve the problem. They wouldn't let it go. And part of me wanted to look them in the eye. I wanted to hear what they had to say. I wrote, okay, I'll be there at 6. I arrived at 6 sharp. I parked near my parents' house and sat in the car for a few minutes, gathering my strength. Then I got out, walked up to the door, and knocked. My dad opened it. He looked tired, older than usual. He didn't smile, just nodded and stepped aside to let me in. My mother was inside. She was sitting on the sofa with her hands folded on her lap. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. There were cups of tea on the coffee table, half drunk. And Marcus. He was sitting in an armchair opposite, leaning forward, elbows on his knees, his face tense. When I entered, he looked up and looked at me. His gaze was a mixture of anger, despair, and something else, perhaps guilt, but I wasn't sure. Hi, I said quietly. Mom didn't answer. Dad sat down next to her and pointed to the empty chair. I sat down. Silence. No one knew how to start. Finally, Dad said, Wendy, do you know why we asked you to come? I think it's because of Marcus, I replied, looking at him, not my brother. Yes, Dad sighed. Marcus told us about the situation with the phone plan and the appliances. He told you that he used my phone plan to buy $10,000 worth of appliances and didn't tell me? I asked bluntly. Mom grimaced as if in pain. Wendy, don't say that, she whispered. He didn't mean to hurt you. He thought it would work out. Work out? I looked at her. I've been paying for his stuff for a year, Mom. He took out a loan in my name without telling me. That's not, it will work out. That's fraud. Marcus finally spoke up. I didn't take out a loan in your name, Wendy. I just set up an installment plan through the tariff. I didn't know it would be so expensive. The operator said it would be pennies a month. Pennies, I repeated. $83 is pennies? I thought I could handle it. I was going to pay you back, honestly. When? I asked coldly. In 10 years, when the installment plan ends? He fell silent and clenched his fists. Dad intervened. Wendy, I understand you have a right to be angry. Marcus made a mistake. He admits it. But what you did, canceling the payment plan, now he has a huge problem. He has to pay back almost $9,500 in a month and a half, or the operator will sue him. That's his problem, I said, not mine. Mom exploded. How can you say that? He's your brother. Family. Do you want him to be convicted? I want him to be responsible for his actions, I replied, my voice steady. He's a grown man, 25 years old. He earns money. He can pay it back. But he doesn't have that kind of money. Mom stood up, her hands shaking. He tried to get a loan from the bank, but they turned him down. He can't sell the equipment back. The store won't take it. What is he supposed to do? I looked at Marcus. He was staring at the floor. You spent all the money, didn't you? I asked. He nodded silently. On what? On various things. On a girl. On bars. On trips. I don't know, Wendy. I don't keep a notebook like you do. He said the last part with irritation, as if it were my fault that he didn't know how to manage money. I stood up. I'm not going to help you, Marcus. I'm sorry. Find a part-time job, borrow from friends, sell your equipment, but you won't get my money. He stood up abruptly. You have savings, he exclaimed. I know you're saving. You have at least $8,000 there. I froze. I looked at him. How do you know how much money I have? He faltered. He realized he had said too much. Well, you said it yourself once. I've never told anyone the exact amount, I said quietly. Never. The silence fell like a heavy stone. Mom looked at Marcus, then at me. What are you talking about? I didn't answer. I kept looking at my brother. Marcus, I said very quietly, where's my $4,500? He looked away. I don't know what you're talking about. Yesterday I had $8,700 in an envelope. Today it's $4,200. You came to my house yesterday. My neighbors saw you. Where's the money? Mom exhaled. Marcus, you didn't take her money, did you? He was silent. Dad stood up and walked over to his son. Marcus, answer me. Did you take your sister's money? Marcus pressed his lips together. He was silent for 10 seconds. Then he exploded. Yes, I took it, but it's fair. She canceled my rate. Now I have to pay back $9,000. I only took half of her money to cover part of it. It's fair, isn't it? I felt something break inside me. Not anger, not pain, just a cold emptiness. You broke into my house and stole my savings, I said, barely audibly. My money, which I had been saving for 3 years. And you think that's fair? You ruined my life, he shouted. Over some stupid dress. You're crazy. Marcus, Dad yelled, and for the first time I heard him yell at his son like that. Shut up. Right now. Mom was crying. Marcus stood there, breathing heavily, his fists clenched. I looked at my father. He looked broken. I filed a police report against him yesterday, I said calmly. They'll be here soon, I think. They'll question him. If he confesses, he might get away with a fine and an obligation to return the money. If he denies it, the case will go to court. Mom covered her face with her hands. Wendy, how could you... It's the police. He's your brother. He's a thief, Mom, I said, and turned toward the door. And I don't want anything to do with him anymore. I left the house without looking back. I got in the car. I drove home. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel, but I didn't cry. I didn't allow myself to. Detective Raymond Cale called me 2 days later. He asked me to come to the station to clarify some details. I took a day off work and went. The station was small and old, smelling of coffee and paper. Detective Cale turned out to be a man in his 50s, with gray hair at the temples, wearing a simple shirt and jeans. He showed me into his office and offered me coffee. I declined. We sat down at the table, and he opened a folder. Miss Harrison, I spoke with your brother, he said. Also with your neighbor, Miss Delaney, and your parents. I want to clarify a few things. I nodded. Your neighbor confirmed that Marcus Harrison came to your apartment the day before yesterday around 3 in the afternoon. He tried to convince her to let him in, but she refused. However, according to her, she went to the kitchen for a few minutes, leaving the door open. Could this have given him access to the apartment? I thought about it. Maybe, if he went in quickly when she wasn't looking. My room is to the right of the entrance, and I don't lock the door. He could have gone in, taken the money, and left in a minute. The detective nodded and wrote something down. Your brother confessed to taking the money. During the interrogation, he said he considered it compensation for what he called ruining his finances by canceling his rate plan. He claimed that he only took half of the amount, not all of it, because he considered it a fair division. I remained silent. The detective looked at me. Miss Harrison, this is very telling. A thief who has no personal relationship with the victim would have taken all the money, but your brother took exactly half. This indicates that he was not motivated by greed, but by a sense of resentment, perhaps, or a desire to restore justice as he sees it. This does not justify his actions, but it explains the logic. He stole from me, I said quietly. Does it matter how much he took? From a legal standpoint, no. Theft is theft. He confessed, and there is a witness who saw him near your apartment at the right time. The case is pretty clear. What happens next? The detective put down his pen. Considering that he confessed and expressed his willingness to return the money, the prosecutor will most likely offer a deal, a fine, an obligation to return the stolen amount in installments, possibly a suspended sentence or community service. If you insist on severe punishment, the case will go to court, and he may receive a real sentence for theft. The decision is yours." I looked at my hands. I thought about Marcus, about how he laughed at my dress, how he took advantage of my rate, how he stole my savings and called it justice. "I don't want him to go to prison," I said finally, "but I want him to return the money, all of it, and I want him to understand that what he did was a crime." The detective nodded. "Understood. I'll pass that on to the prosecutor. You'll get a hearing notice within a week. Your brother will be fined and ordered to pay back the money. Usually in cases like this, they set up a payment plan, $200 or $300 a month, depending on income. How long will it take?" "At that rate, about 2 years to pay back the whole amount. Maybe less if he finds an additional job. 2 years. I nodded. "Okay." The detective closed the folder and looked at me intently. "Miss Harrison, if I may ask a personal question, why did you decide to report your brother to the police? Most people in such situations try to resolve everything within the family." I thought for about 5 seconds. Then I said, "Because if I hadn't done it, he wouldn't have understood. He thought he could do anything to me and I would still keep quiet because we are family. But family is no excuse for cheating and stealing." The detective nodded slowly. "Wise. Although I'm afraid your family may not understand." "I know," I said, "but I can't go on living as if everything is normal." I thanked him and left. The sun was shining outside and it was warm. I got in the car and looked at my phone. 20 new messages. Mom, Aunt Maureen, Jillian, even some friend of Marcus's whom I'd seen twice in my life. They all said pretty much the same thing. I was cruel. I had destroyed my brother. I had torn my family apart. How could I do that to someone I loved? I didn't reply to anyone. I deleted the messages. I blocked everyone except my parents. I drove home. On the way, I stopped at the bank, opened an account, and deposited the rest of my savings, $4,200. No more keeping cash at home, ever. When I got home, Roxy was sitting in the kitchen with coffee. She looked at me. "Did you sort everything out with the police?" "Yes," I said and sat down opposite her. "He confessed. There will be a fine and an obligation to return the money." "Okay." She took a sip of coffee. "Listen, Wendy, I don't want to get involved in your business, but if you need it, I can help. If he tries anything again." I looked at her. We had hardly spoken during the year we lived together, but now there was sincerity in her eyes. "Thank you," I said quietly. "Really, thank you." She nodded and went to her room. I stayed in the kitchen alone. I looked out the window at the street where children were playing near the entrance, where someone was walking their dog, where life went on as if nothing had changed. But for me, everything had changed. The first hearing was a week later. I didn't go. The lawyer said my presence wasn't necessary because Marcus had confessed and agreed to a plea bargain. I was sent a copy of the ruling by mail, a $500 fine, an obligation to repay $4,500 in installments of $200 per month, 100 hours of community service, and a 1-year suspended sentence. I held the paper in my hands and felt nothing. No relief, no satisfaction, no regret, just emptiness. My mother called that same day. I didn't answer the phone. She left a voicemail which I listened to in the evening. Her voice was cold and sharp, nothing like the warm tone she used when she spoke to Marcus. "Wendy, I hope you're happy. Marcus has been fined, and now he has a criminal record, a suspended sentence, but a criminal record nonetheless. He'll have to work 2 jobs to pay you back and cover the loan you put him in. He's selling his equipment for pennies because no one wants to buy used stuff at a normal price. Dad and I lent him $2,000 so he could at least pay you back partially. But that's what you wanted, right? You wanted to punish him. For what? For the dress? For the joke? He's your brother, Wendy. He was your brother. I don't know if I can forgive you for this." The message ended. I deleted it. My father wrote that same evening in short, "Daughter, let's talk. This has gone too far." I didn't reply. Over the next week, several other people wrote to me. Aunt Maureen sent a long message about how important it is to forgive, how family is the most precious thing we have, and how ashamed I will be when I get older and realize what I have done. My cousin Jillian wrote, "I didn't think you could be so cruel. Marcus made a mistake, but you ruined his life." One of Marcus's friends, whom I didn't know, wrote to me on social media, "You're a toxic bitch. I hope it comes back to you." I blocked them all, one by one. My aunt, my sister, Marcus's friends, even my mother. I left my father alone. I don't know why. Maybe because at least he didn't yell, but he didn't write anymore. Life went on. I went to work, answered calls, booked tickets. My colleagues didn't know anything. I didn't tell them. Samantha asked me once if everything was okay with my family because I looked a little off. I said yes, I was just tired. She didn't press me. Roxy didn't ask either. She just sometimes left me coffee in the kitchen before going to bed after her night shift. A small gesture, but a nice one. A month later, the first transfer from Marcus arrived. $200 to my bank account. No message, no comment, just money. I looked at my statement and calculated that at this rate, he would pay off the entire amount in 22 and a half months. Almost 2 years. I would receive those $200 every month and think about him, about what he had done, about what I had done. I don't know if it was punishment for him or for me. That fall, I started looking for an apartment. With what I had left plus the transfer from Marcus, I had $4,400. Not enough for a down payment, but I kept saving. I cut back even more. Stopped buying coffee even at home, switched to cheaper groceries, walked instead of taking the bus whenever possible. Sometimes I caught myself thinking that I was doing all this not just for the apartment, but to prove something. To myself, maybe, or to them. My mom, Marcus, everyone who decided that I was cruel and wrong, that I can do it, that I can handle it, that I don't need their family, where I was never seen. I don't need their love if it depends on how much I'm willing to endure. I didn't go to my parents' house for Christmas. They didn't invite me. I sat at home, watched a movie I don't remember, ate instant noodles. Roxy was at work. The apartment was quiet and dark, lit only by the TV. I thought, this is my life now. One room in someone else's apartment, cheap food, loneliness. But then I thought, was it better before? When I sat at my parents' table, smiled at their jokes, endured their contempt, pretended that everything was fine? No, it wasn't better. It was worse. Because back then, I wasn't myself. I was a convenient version of myself. Now I am myself. And it's scary and lonely, but honest. In January, I was offered a promotion at work. Not a big one, the position of coordinator instead of manager, a salary of $1,400 instead of $1,200. But still, it's more. I agreed. Linda, my boss, said I deserved it, that she had noticed how I had become more confident in recent months, how I had stopped being afraid to refuse clients when they were wrong, how I had become clearer in expressing my opinion at meetings. I didn't tell her that the reason wasn't work. It was that once you say no to the people closest to you and deal with the consequences, it becomes easier to say no to strangers. In February, I saw a job posting at another company, a larger travel agency, international destinations, salary of $1,700. I submitted my resume, not really believing they would hire me, but they called me. They invited me for an interview. I went to a store. Not a second-hand store, not a sale. Just a regular store. I looked at dresses. I found one. Dark blue, a little brighter than I usually wore, with a neckline that emphasized my shoulders. $180. I stood there for about 5 minutes. I thought, it's too expensive. I can find something cheaper. I can wear something old. Then I remembered the black dress, the one with the wine stains. I hadn't thrown it away. It was still hanging in the closet, wrapped in a bag. I didn't know why I kept it. Maybe as a reminder. I took the dress off the hanger and went to the cash register. The interview went well. I answered questions confidently, smiled when necessary, Wasn't afraid to say that I didn't know something, but was willing to learn. The HR manager, a woman in her 40s named Clark, seemed satisfied. A week later, they called me. I got the job. The salary was $1,500 starting in March. I hung up the phone and just sat on the couch. Roxy was at home, heard the conversation, and left the room. "Good news?" she asked. "Yes," I smiled. "I got a new job." "Great." She came over and hugged me unexpectedly. "I'm happy for you, Wendy. Seriously." I was surprised. We had never been close. But something had changed in recent months. We started talking more, sometimes cooking dinner together, watching movies. She was becoming more than just a neighbor, something more, maybe a friend. "Thank you," I said. "Seriously, thank you for everything." She smiled. "You're doing great. Really. After everything that happened, you didn't break down." I didn't know what to say. I just nodded. In March, I received the last transfer from Marcus according to the old schedule, $200. Then a message came from the bank. Early repayment of the remaining debt, $3,000 in one payment. I looked at the statement and realized, my parents. They must have lent him more money so that he could pay off the debt faster and have nothing more to do with me. I felt nothing. No relief, no sadness, no satisfaction. I just closed the app and put my phone down. The money was back, but everything else remained the same. I found an apartment in May, a small one-room apartment on the second floor of an old building with windows overlooking the park. The landlord wanted $22,000 for the first payment and 2 months deposit. I had $24,000. I had finally saved up. I signed the contract and got the keys. I moved in a week later. Roxy helped me. She brought boxes and helped me move my things in her car. We ordered pizza afterwards, sat on the floor in the empty apartment, ate, and laughed at something silly. "You did it," she said, raising a can of beer. "Here's to Wendy and her new apartment." I smiled and clinked my can against hers. "Here's to new beginnings," I said. In June, my mom texted me for the first time in 6 months. I had unblocked her number a week earlier. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to give her a chance. The message was short. "Wendy, Marcus gave you the money. Now it's all behind us. Maybe you'll come back to the family. We miss you." I read it several times. Come back to the family. As if I had gone somewhere. As if I had done something wrong. As if they had forgotten who started it. I didn't reply. I put my phone down and looked at my apartment. At the small sofa I bought on sale. At the table I found at a flea market. At the window overlooking the park where children were playing on the playground. This is mine, my place, my home. And no one can take it away from me because I earned every dollar honestly. In July, I was cleaning out my closet and found that dress, black, with wine stains. I took it out, unfolded the bag, looked at the fabric. The stain was still there, dark red, dried, old. I tried to remove it back then, on that night after my birthday, but it didn't work. The wine had soaked in too deeply. I held the dress in my hands and thought, why didn't I throw it away? Why am I keeping it? And then I realized, this dress is not just clothing. It's a reminder of what happened, about who I was then, quiet, comfortable, invisible, and about who I became, stronger, more independent, freer. This dress cost $120 when I bought it, but in reality, it cost $9,000. That's how much Marcus had to pay back to the operator when I canceled the fare. It cost $4,500, which he stole and which I got back. It cost me my family, my mother, who chose her son, my brother, who never respected me, relatives who accused me of cruelty, but it also gave me freedom, the understanding that I don't have to put up with it, that I have the right to say no, that I can stand up for myself, even if it means being alone. That dress cost me my old life and gave me a new one. I hung it back in the closet, next to the new blue one I bought for the interview. 2 dresses, 2 lives. In August, my mother wrote again, "Wendy, are you really never going to talk to us again? This is family." I stared at the message for a long time, My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I could have written a lot. That family is no excuse. That love without respect is not love. That I am not obliged to return to a place where I was humiliated. But I didn't write anything. I just blocked the number again. Forever. This time. September brought cool weather and yellow leaves. I sat on the balcony of my apartment with a cup of tea, looking at the park. Children were running and laughing. Someone was walking their dog. A couple was sitting on a bench, hugging. Life went on. My life went on. I didn't know if I would ever see my mother again, if my father would talk to me, if Marcus would apologize, a real, honest apology. But I knew one thing. I was no longer invisible. I was no longer convenient. I was just me. Wendy Harrison, 24 years old, travel company coordinator, owner of a small one-bedroom apartment that she had earned herself. And if anyone asks me if it was worth it, the pain, the loneliness, the break with my family, for a $5 dress, I'll say, that dress didn't cost $5, it cost $9,000. And it's the best thing I've ever spent my money on, because that money didn't buy me a dress. It bought me freedom, dignity, myself, and I will never give that up again. The end.